3 declassified government operations. Operations that were kept secret for decades. Operations they finally admitted happened. 2 of these stories come from official declassified files, documents they released, evidence they finally acknowledged. One never happened. It's made up so far, but it sounds just as
3
real as the
declassified
others.
government operations.
Oh my.
Where's that coming from?
You could talk while I was trying to figure out where that was coming from.
I don't know. I was wondering if you were frozen. Okay.
No. Did you not see my voice? I had to go.
Well,
So let's go back into this. 2 of these stories actually happened. One is made up, but it sounds just as real as the others. 2 truths, 1 lie. Let's see if you can spot the fake government operation.
welcome back to 2 Real, 2 Truths, 1 Lie. 3 stories, 2 actually happened, 1 is a lie. It's completely made up. Your job is to figure out which one.
Mm-hmm. This week, we're diving into something the government finally admitted. After decades of secrecy, I can say that, after years of denial, declassified files that show what was really happening behind the closed doors.
The government keeps secrets. That's what it does. But eventually, sometimes 60 plus years later, those secrets come out. Declassified documents get released. The truth comes into the light.
So we're mixing 3 government operations, 2 are real from official declassified files, and they're more the recent ones. One sounds just as real, but it never actually happened that we know of. So go by your instinct. Let's go. And if you're new, subscribe now. We do this every Monday. 2 real, 2 truths, and a lie. So are you ready for the first story, Mike?
Let's go.
Okay, let's get into the first story here. The Signal. Am I the asshole for believing my government would never see evidence myself? A military research division created a system that could transmit targeted radio frequencies to specific geographic areas. The frequencies were calibrated to induce psychological effects. So things they are looking for is increased compliance, reduced critical thinking, emotional manipulation. They tested it starting in the 1960s, at first in controlled laboratory settings, then in real world conditions on specific communities. Communities they selected deliberately, I can say that. Poor neighborhoods, areas with low media literacy, populations less likely to question what was happening. The system worked by piggybacking on existing broadcasting infrastructure such as radio stations and television signals. They could be embedded into the frequencies without disrupting normal transmissions, and no one would know it was happening. The frequency were below conscious perception, but above the threshold that would cause physical harm. And some of the effects included increased compliance with authority, reduced capacity for skepticism, and emotional regulation. In the documents I found, all declassified, all officially released, the government researchers signed off on it. Supervisors approved it, and the military knew about it. What shocked me most wasn't that it happened, it was how openly it's documented in the files. No hidden conspiracy, just straightforward. This is what we did. This is how we did it, and here's the data. When I try to tell people about it, they don't believe me. They say it's impossible. The government wouldn't do that. But the declassified files say they actually did. The government tested radio frequency mind controls on its own citizens with authorization and documentation of it. And now it's all publicly available. Am I an asshole for believing the declassified government documents and expecting people to actually care about what they reveal and what they really mean. So before you get into your answer, I'm going to bring a shout out to our question here. What is this? Every Monday we meet and we are doing our two real, two truths and a lie. So we go over a concept. Tonight we are looking at essentially government documentation coming to light that are declassified. So classified documents from the government that are now declassified, and going over which ones are real and which one is not actually disclosed as being real. So the first one here is this transmitting a frequency to essentially change people's perceptions, and it's like a mind control, right?
Sounds like the lead up to an election. Didn't they do this with Facebook ads between Hillary and Trump in that election? They can sway public opinion super quickly with focused technologies on certain swing areas, right? So this is no surprise. And I don't know if the "am I the asshole" question is really like it's. Does it? Don't expect people to care what the government did and then released about it, because we know people have very short memory spans and they will just keep on going in their life, not caring what the government was doing in secret and then came out and publicly admitted to. Like, it's just people move on so quick. So just the
And,
ones who
and then they also forget. There's also this weird thing where they find something out, but they somehow forget what they've come
are they like,
across.
oh, or the normal people are just like, oh, I'm over it. I'm over it. It's over. I'm over it. And it's like, oh, you don't really seem over it, but you've trained yourself to be over it. So,
Well, or they just want to move on because it's such uncomfortable information that it's difficult to digest when you put corporation governments at a certain level and you really respect them and you think, oh, they would never do this to me. And then you find out puzzle piece after situation that doesn't match what your perspective is. And that can be difficult because then you want to shut down the messenger. Even if it is true, you don't want to digest that information because that's going to change the way with that corporation, right? And here we had Michael Rolls, 8534, and this is a great comment. They can do the same thing with our lighting. LEDs emit flashes of light to impulses at these same frequencies. So it's a well-known that they can do things with technology we may not be privy to, right?
exactly. So, go over the verdicts. They're not the end.
Well, really, overall, the top comments, the government literally documented mind control experiments, and people still don't believe it when you show them the files. Why does official proof matter if nobody cares? Right? Why does it even matter? Because you're not going to do anything about it because you don't actually really want to know anyways, right? And then, the government should have been more transparent when releasing, but does that make anybody care more, right? And in fairness, like the other comment, the public should be actually reading the documents and instead of dismissing them. However, that means you need to even be aware that they're happening. And if you're following mainstream media, often you don't even know these things have been declassified or disclosed, right?
Correct. You're just open to whatever media that you're open to, and then everything else is just noise, right? So, we've gone through many periods of that through every single generation. I'll just leave it
Exactly.
at that, right?
So keep this in mind. This is our first story, using signal to essentially manipulate and control the population's mind. This is the first. Is this true that this was declassified? So that was our first story. Are you ready to continue into our second story?
Let's go.
Let's get into the second story here. Story 2, Invisible Ink, the secret was in the light. Am I the asshole for being shocked that one of the government's most advanced surveillance technique is actually decades old? The technique involves using specific chemical markers that can be applied to telephone equipment, markers that were completely invisible to the naked eye. But under ultraviolet light, intelligent operatives could see exactly which lines had been tapped and when they were activated and which agency had authorized the tap. It was genius, actually. Simple but very sophisticated. Instead of trying to hide the fact that the line was tapped, they marked it in a way that only other operatives would recognize. If you knew what to look for, you could walk into a facility, use that UV light, and instantly identify every surveillance operation running. The government thought to keep this technique classified for decades. They knew that once this method was public, it would be useless. Every intelligent agency in the world would understand it, and operatives would start checking with UV markers. But when the files were finally declassified, there it was, step by step instructions, specific chemicals they used, the wavelengths that worked best, everything. And what amazed me most was how elegant it was. No electronic components, no technology that could be traced, just chemistry and light. It's the kind of thing a spy novelist would write and then worry it was too clever to be realistic. But the government actually did this. For years, I assumed modern surveillance must be vastly more advanced than what existed in the past, and that surely with computers and digital technology, they must have developed techniques that would make this chemical UV method more primitive. But the files suggest otherwise. This technique was developed over 60 years ago and was so effective that they kept it classified longer than most other operations. So, am I the asshole for being shocked that one of the government's most sophisticated surveillance techniques was so low tech that and for realizing that it's something that the simplest ideas are the most dangerous?
I think that's quite accurate. The simplest ideas can be the most dangerous, right?
Oh, exactly, exactly. And sometimes, and it's like when you go back to the idea of like keep it simple, stupid, right? Like sometimes we're overcomplicating things. And when you step back, you don't need this complicated system to be very effective, right? And for them to be able to go in. And I'm like, oh, you know what else probably really ruined it was all these people that show up because I know I follow some people on YouTube and they'll go into hotels with UV lights, right? And so I'm starting to think, oh, because of the use of UV lights, because people are checking it out at some point it probably would have become more apparent,
You-
or if you noticed a pattern, right?
I was
If you
gonna
kept
say people
right.
got so bored during COVID, they've got and they're started to like just plus the advent of like content creators and stuff like that. Like people just like they're like, hey, I got time to like inspect this, right? And it's like, hey, let's go take UV flashlights all through Vegas or whatever other shady hotels. And it's like, hey, this, they're just documenting life and saying, hey, this, you can actually prove this stuff. You can, yeah, it's interesting. Super
Oh,
interesting.
it is, and like how simple it is, right? And that they wouldn't want to, of course, because as soon as they had UV lights, that's something that people could have maybe started to put together, or you'd probably hear through a conspiracy theorist. They didn't want that out because now you can go and check, and of course, I'm sure some of those places
It's
still have trace chemicals on them,
Well, no, no,
right?
no. I was just gonna say it's like this. Okay, so they're using UV light chemicals to hide stuff, and then when you realize now in life where it's like usually one manufacturer is making like 50 different products for 50 different brands, you're like, wait a minute, there's so many similarities going on. Like it's just like I just feel we're in the time where the veil's being opened, and if you just look, you can see a lot of the stuff that was hidden or lied about for like long periods of time. Just
Well,
because nobody really.
you start to kind of see a pattern, right? Like you start to notice that this time and this time all kind of have this similar sense or technology or whatever, right? Like you just start to see similarities and patterns, right? It's interesting with this because obviously like that black light technology is quite useful, right? And so of course, that wasn't the normal person wasn't really carrying around a black light. Now it might be different, especially as people are bored and going into those hotel
Well, no,
rooms.
I was gonna say bored because it's just like I know that people like in there's special tools now for like analyzing like diamonds and stuff like that, where everybody
Oh,
had the same
yeah.
tool at one point, and now everything's super sophisticated. And if you got the time and the money, you can actually prove the difference between a lot of stuff. Where before it was like a mystery. So
Or you had to do the hard, like the old way. Like right now, like there's coming up a lot of fake precious metals in China, and the only way to figure out they're not if they're fake or real is by actually cutting open that brick, that coin, whatever you got. Gold is very highly like it's gold plated, and then there's something else in it, right? So then you're doing
yeah,
the dirty
yeah,
way of having to actually cut it open. You want to find out if they're wiretapping you, you have to open up your phone. Well, no, it wasn't even that complex, right? So what's interesting is the top vibe comment with this is the technique was so sophisticated that they did keep it classified for 60 years. And now people are surprised it worked. Uh, that's exactly why the government keeps secrets, because the truth is scarier than we imagine. And sometimes it's not even that complicated how they're spying on us, right?
exactly.
And it's interesting because another comment was these are old operations from decades ago. Being shocked about what the government did 60 years ago isn't going to change anything. The technique is obsolete anyway, which it is now, right? It's never
Well,
they
there's
they
there's certain
probably adopted it.
yeah, no, but there's certain things that are still old school and they're still really effective. So um, yeah,
I feel like my daughter got this in like one of her like science spy kits with the UV lights because that's how
yeah,
now normal it is, right?
exactly.
Okay, so that was story number 2. So lock that in. Invisible ink as the way that they were wiring and spying on people. Is this the true declassified story or is the false one? Okay, let's jump to story number 3 here. Okay. They did what? It's all declassified. Am I the asshole for expecting people to be angry about what the declassified files reveal that the government did to its own American citizens? The program the programs were massive, not small, isolated incidences. Some systematic operations approved at the highest level of government. They administered drugs to unwitting subjects, LSD, chemical compounds designed to alter consciousness and reduce free will. They documented the effects. They continued the experiment for years. They conducted surveillance operations against 300,000 American citizens who committed no crimes. Not 300, not 3,000, 300,000, and monitored, tracked, investigated without legal justification. They created media manipulation programs designed to shape public opinion through planted stories, false information, and coordinated messaging. They turned journalists into intelligent assets without their knowledge or consent. They approved assassination plots against people, sometimes foreign leaders, often American citizens they deemed threats. All documented, all approved by supervisors, directors, agency heads, all with authorization from levels of government that were supposed to be the oversight. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not speculation. It's the official declassified files. The government literally documented what they did and they kept it secret for decades. But now that it's public, the response has been muted. A few news cycles, some outrage online, then everyone moves on. I can't understand it. If the government admits in official declassified documents that they conducted mind control experiments on surveillance on hundreds of thousands of citizens with assassination programs, shouldn't that be the biggest story ever? Shouldn't people be demanding answers? Am I the asshole for wanting people to actually care about what their government has officially admitted to doing to its citizens?
Again, one of these things where people expect people to care about what the government was doing to them, and we can. It's just they don't.
It wasn't me, right? So you don't even know if it was you or not, right? Like I think everybody's like, "Oh, that sucks for these 300,000 people and their families and them that all got tested on." But, how much it does it's this idea, okay? there was a commercial. I don't know if you remember this growing up, and it was literally the idea was you see something wrong, but you don't say anything. And so by the time this catches up to you, there's nobody to speak up for what's happening to now you, right? So you see something wrong, you don't speak up to say anything about it. It continues until eventually it comes round. At some point, you're the last person standing and there's no one to speak up for you, right? And that's what we're at. Like, that 300,000 people is not a small number. That's a city. That's a city of people that was, even the reporters are essentially CIA agents, right? Like, they're disclosing that all of these things, everything they're telling you was planted information. Then he goes, what can you believe? What can we believe at any point in our reality if they've done this to quite a large percentage of the population?
Just keep sleeping. Just keep sleeping in reality. You don't have to worry about any of it.
It's not gonna help. It's not gonna affect you. It's not gonna happen to you. Oh, it'll never come back to you. It'll happen to everybody else but you. That's why you don't have your backups. And what company was it that you just said lost all their backups?
Oh, don't even. PBS Broadcasting. Well, we know PBS lost all their funding, but recently PBS lost like 40 years of digital footage because they didn't have any backups, and the cloud system they were using went
Kablooey.
So,
And all I can think is, like, coming right back to something, our main focus from when we were in university in the early 2000s about having 3 types of backups and every business should have it. And we are now 23 years later, and we legitimately are seeing businesses lose 40, 50 years of documents right there.
well, no, and the funny thing is, when I see people post on social, they're like, "Hey, this is how you get free storage. Just store everything over here." And I'm like, that's like putting your disorganized files in a bucket that you have no control over, and that bucket could just disappear, be stolen, be hacked. Like, why are we telling people? Like, no, 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 no. I don't understand why.
The fact that you should have 3 different backups and you have
Minimum 3. Minimum 3. Like,
and you have only one, and one that is completely outside of your control and reliant on the internet or cloud manage or whatever, right? Like, but then we're right back here. It's the same thing. You don't believe it's going to happen to you, right? They're like, oh, well, we have the right thing, so we're not going to get hacked. But that doesn't guarantee that server, as we know, went down and is kablooey and everything is gone off of that. And so you're like,
flood, fire, theft, user error, hackers, hardware. Like, there's just so many factors.
And then we come back to this whole thing of believing that when they start disclosing all of these things, they've tested on you. So you've been paying taxes, you've been a good compliant slave, and they've been testing on you. And that's okay, because that's too difficult to comprehend. Why would we want to know? That only happened to that 300,000 people. My thought is, if they tell you they're doing something, you should take that literally, stopping them from doing a version of that right now. We have no guarantee that they're still doing to bigger to the population hasn't been declassified.
And now you understand why so many people who come out of the military may have PTSD, because whatever their government was doing to them is on the military. You are doing the role of whatever your boss, your commanders are telling you to do, so you can make that salary to send back home, and you're really the guinea pig hero, but guinea pig. What do they want to, like? We know people who, they're veterans, and it's like all the stuff that they had to go through in order to be that hero doing that particular job is like. So yeah, you went through all this stuff, and then the site, whatever wars or fake wars or whatever, and then it's like, anyway.
Well,
they're always testing.
Okay, first, just so that you did kind of cut out, but we got the gist of it.
Okay.
I mean, it does come back down to that's a whole nother population that they're always testing on. Because when you sign up for the military, army, navy, whatever, they literally can do whatever they want on you. And that's something else they don't even talk about, right? And then we've got a comment here. They used to inject mold into us. You know what? Exactly. They've been testing so many things on different parts of the population. So when they declassify one example, that especially when they're outing out all the things they were doing to this population with the LSD, the journalists, the fake news, all of that should leave you very uncomfortable. Because if they've done that on one population, they're learning, and they're taking what they learned, and they're most likely doing it on an even larger population, right? And so this is where we need to start critically thinking. But we come into that these are the three stories, and one of these is actually not a declassified story. Not yet, anyways. But there's enough evidence that it's not a hard sell that this would be something declassified. Do you want to go? Shall we summarize up? Oh, actually, before we do, let's go with the verdicts on this one because I don't think I went over this.
No, you haven't done the verdicts yet because
Well,
we
the
just
top comments with this one being declassified is the government tortured citizens with LSD, surveillance 300,000 people, and manipulated the media. The proof is the official declassified files, but nobody cares because we're numb to government crimes now. And there's a lot to say to that, like, especially in Canada when there's no accountability. So even if you find out they've done it, there's no accountability. Well, what does it even matter then, right? Because if nobody's being held accountable to the crimes they're doing against their own people, right? So then does that desensitize us that it doesn't even make us want to be motivated, right?
well, no, and you can see that, and there's things going on against you that you don't even realize is a crime until like 10, 20, 30 years later.
Well, one comment, here's an example of like kind of being numb and kind of in that weird delusion. Because one of the comments is these programs happened decades ago under different administration. People struggled to be outraged about historical injustices when they're dealing with present day problems. Well, I get that. The reality is when these things are declassified, they're not saying that they stopped doing these things or that they didn't adapt what they were doing in these type of secret things. What would we call them? Secret projects, right? Secret projects that just how they adapted, right? Because like everything, this just adapted over years, right? And so I get it, being upset about historical injustices may not be a motivation. However, it should make you really think, well, what are they doing with that now? And how much have they learned through that process?
Exactly. And what are they doing to us right now that's going to be called a historical injustice in the future?
Exactly.
Because
And that
when 2020 to 2026 is analyzed 50 to 100 years in the future, like what are people going to think?
Exactly. And especially with things like, okay, we've had this famous actress that just unfortunately passed away suddenly. She's 36 years old and making a comment of how all these people have suddenly died that are very young. There is a people that have taken the solution to COVID and then they suddenly die. There is a complete, like, transparent path with that. And if I state it, I'm being rude to somebody for showing them this path because they think
Well,
we're what was the
why aren't you over it? Why aren't you over it? Why can't you just move past it? You're like
or fear
the,
mongering
the
or
effect
fear mongering.
the effects are going to be like 10 to 20 years in the future, and people don't realize that's even a possibility.
Well, I like the being called a fear mongerer when you see a pattern and you're like, there's a pattern. People didn't just suddenly die in their 30s. They didn't suddenly die in their 20s as healthy athletes. They didn't just suddenly die, and they didn't just suddenly get fourth stage cancers and all these weird things. Was not normal prior to 2020. That didn't happen. So we have to look at this, and if we aren't learning from our past and what is being declassified and being told to us, so if you're in the vertical, you can see the little image there. If we're not learning from that, we are going to continue being stuck in this treadmill of lies. Because if you're not getting smarter, we're not seeing the pattern, we're choosing that, oh, it was the history, our government here is now doing something better, you're missing the point.
100%.
So now, let's put in your guess on which of these is not actually declassified. Do you want to go over the summary and I will post it here?
Okay.
Can you find them?
Yeah. I was just looking through it. I was like, okay, all three are there. Perfect. So story number 1. Government tested radio frequency mind control on its own citizens starting in the 1960s. Documented procedures, approved at the highest levels. It's in the declassified files. Story number 2. Intelligence operatives used chemical markers visible only under UV light to identify which telephone lines have been tapped. Sophisticated technique kept classified for decades, now declassified. Story number 3. Systematic experiments with LSD on unwitting citizens. Surveillance of 300,000 Americans. Media manipulation programs, assassination plots, all approved, all documented, all declassified. Lock it in. And if you're brand new, subscribe now. We do this every Monday, and when you subscribe and turn on notifications, you're going to get an email from YouTube saying, hey, we're live.
Exactly. So while everybody's deciding which one it has not actually been declassified, what is your guess, Mike?
Well, number 2 seems like legit because, and 3, I'm like, yeah, they're going to drug people. They're going to drug people. But 1 sounds super legit because we know they, like, based on what I know in IT, they could literally just use radio waves to beam messages to people. And that is literally how Wi-Fi internet was like created, was like, hey, we can beam packets of information to computers and to devices. But it's like,
well, and in fairness, I've heard of voice to God technology or whatever. So
the
people
voice of God technology, exactly, which seemed to be very prevalent during 2020 to 2025. You know what? I'm going to say story 2, we know they've been using the UV lights to mark stuff up. And 3, I know that they drug people because that's literally how, the U.S. government does a lot of fun stuff. I'm going to go the one they all seem legit, but the one where I'm just like, I don't think it has necessarily been declassified because they're likely still doing it is story 1.
Well, we also had that same guess. My Mystic in the chat has guess number 1 as well.
All
So
right.
lock in your answers. And if you want to do the little drum roll, Mike, let's lock it in. And again, if you are new, make sure you do subscribe. And we do this every Monday. Okay, is everybody ready for the fake story?
Ready for the fake story.
And it was the first story. You were correct.
Hey,
good job,
Mike. Wow.
It's the only one that has not actually been declassified. Radio frequency mind control sounds plausible. It is. We know this. It fits what we know about government mind control experiments. It has all the hallmarks of declassified operation, documentation, procedures, testing on citizens. However, there is no declassified files about radio frequency mind control that has been tested. So it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but it has not been declassified yet. So it sounds like something the government would do. It has all the right elements. And I would probably say the same thing you said, where they're still probably using it. That's why this is not declassified.
Exactly. Come on.
That's our personal opinions. Exactly. So story number 2, that invisible ink is completely real. And we have a hi, Mr. Duffy in the comment from GABA Printing.
Hey, Gabba Gabba, New Jersey. How you doing?
Shout out there. Well, let's go. Story 2 is real. The government did use chemical markers under UV lights to identify wiretaps. It is a very sophisticated surveillance technique developed in the early 1960s and was classified for decades. And when it finally was revealed, intelligence agencies fought to keep it classified because now it's useless. Now it's useless. And story 3 is also completely real. The declassified files reveal some systemic, I can say that, systemic government programs involving LSD, experiments on unwitting citizens, surveillance targeting of 300,000 Americans, media manipulation, government or operations turning journalists into intelligent assets. We know that about that one guy, Anderson Cooper, is a CIA guy, right?
And you know what his real last name is?
Oh, I can't remember what
He's from one of the famous families.
I know. I can't remember which one it
Yeah, no,
was.
I think it's Vanderbilt. He's the Vanderbilt. He's
Ah,
a
yes,
Vanderbilt.
I think you're correct. Yes,
But they
you
hide
are.
that because the Vanderbilts are technically bankrupt, right? Technically.
They're corporation, but
Yeah,
they're
they're,
a
yeah,
corporation under the corporation with their trust funds. They're so broke. Don't we got to feel bad for them.
exactly. They just don't pay taxes. That's how broke they are. They just don't pay
There's
taxes
yeah,
because
exactly. So it's unauthorized assassination plots. Obviously, go documents. These are records that are released to the public. The family jewels and the newly declassified files contain all the evidence. And I made the comment, can you say we live in the Truman Show? Like, I feel like we are definitely there.
there's something recently about the Truman. I'm gonna have to show it to you. There's something recently about the Truman Show where it's like, can you believe this is how they filmed it? And I'm like, that sounds super dystopian how they filmed it. But of course, it was to be in character. So anyway, it's just
Exactly,
funny. It's
exactly.
in the script. It's funny. It's in the script. So
Well, I made that comment because that's all it made me think about when I wrote it down. So both story 2 and 3 verified government operations. Story 1 sounds like it should be real. Probably is. It's just not declassified yet. And it still could be true. So follow for the future because soon enough, I'm sure we will discuss that. So that's what makes declassified files both powerful and dangerous. Everything in them sounds plausible, everything sounds like something the government would do, and everything could be believed. But the question remains, what else are we still not being told?
yes, what are we not being told? So tonight we talked about secrets. Secrets the government kept for 60 years. Secrets they finally had to admit because the files were declassified. Secrets that even now that they're public, most people still don't know about. The question we have to ask ourselves is, if the government was doing that and we didn't know about it for 60 years, what are they doing right now that we won't find out about for another 60 years?
Oops, we didn't know what. Well, we now know why
Oops, we did
everybody
it. No.
suddenly died.
Oops, we did it again.
Exactly. Oops, now we know why everybody suddenly died, right? Good times, good times. And that's the real issue. Not just that what they did, but that they're hiding. The declassified files prove something important. The government will admit to extraordinary things eventually, but only when they have no choice, only when the pressure becomes too great, and only when the files are forced into the public domain. So the skill isn't just reading what they've already declassified, it's recognize the patterns of what's missing. So, like we're talking about, are we going to repeat? Right? Because we can't believe the government would do this. Yet then we get declassified documents that show us that they will do this and are doing it, right? So it's recognizing the patterns we're missing. What aren't they talking about? What operations are notable by their absence? And when you understand the timing, when things get declassified and why, you start seeing that what they're still holding and that's or hiding, sorry. And that's exactly why we created the strategic timing and visibility.
Everything begins with their free gold membership. Gold isn't about conspiracy theories, it's about recognizing patterns. Every month, we share our strategic timing guide. We track what's being declassified, what's being released, what's suddenly becoming public, and what the timing tells us about what's still hidden. We update all 4 weekly live shows, patterns we're seeing, government transparency, technology, consciousness expansion, and the collective. Our goal is simple: to help you stay aware of what's being released, becoming conscious of when it's being released, and recognize what the government isn't releasing, because the absence of information is itself the real information.
And once you start recognizing those patterns, something powerful happens. You stop believing the official narratives at face value. You start asking, why now? Why this story? Why this timing? And because when something is released, is just as important as what is actually released. The government doesn't declassify things randomly. It declassifies things strategically. Understanding timing means your game, and that's very powerful.
And that's exactly why we created Visibility University. Every Saturday morning, we teach people how to recognize patterns and visibility in the systems around them, not just YouTube, but in media, government, technology, and the collective consciousness itself. Because visibility isn't just about being seen, it's about seeing with your own eyes, understanding the systems,
Your
recognizing the
own brain with your own brain.
yeah, well, precisely. I got a good story about this recently. Recognizing the patterns that are out there and making intentional choices based on what you actually know, not what you've been told. Whether you're tracking government releases, following media narratives, or building your own visibility in the world, the principles are the same. Understand the timing, recognize a pattern, develop discernment, take action.
Everything we teach comes back to 4 simple ideas: the timing, the pattern, and developing discernment so you can take action. Because information does not change your life. Decisions you make because of that information do. And that motivates you to do different things in your life. So the declassified files prove that the government kept secrets. They also prove that eventually those secrets do come out. The question is, are are you ready when they do? And what are you going to do with that information? And if you like to continue learning, so if you feel like you need to continue learning, join our free gold membership. You can join at IamYouTubeFamous.com. And of course, you can still go to breathewithinyoga.com to get signed up for it. But everything now here at IamYouTubeFamous.com. And so join and make sure you stay up to date with everything we're creating.
Everything we do each week builds on the last. It's one journey shared across 4 live shows. So here's a reminder: Sunday was yesterday. We went live at 7:11 p.m. Eastern with the weekly energy overview. Julianne looks at the week ahead through astrology, numerology, and collective timing so you can understand the conditions before you make important decisions. And they're truly important to look at the week, because I see a lot of people wasting time recently. And I'm like, if you were just plugged into our system, you might actually be able to save yourself a ton of time. But we'll just leave it at that. We'll just let you know we're here. And then when you're ready to understand, sign up for the gold membership, we're here waiting for you. Mondays, 7 p.m. Eastern, 2 real, 2 truths, 1 lie. That's the show we did tonight. We examine what's really happening in technology, consciousness, disclosure, and the systems shaping our world. Not to tell you what to think, but to help you think more clearly about what's actually real. Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. Honestly, though, that's where we zoom out, we connect the stories, follow the patterns, and explore the bigger picture and ask what those patterns mean for all of us. And Saturdays, 9 a.m. Eastern, Visibility University. Learn practical strategies to recognize patterns, understand timing, and build visibility in the systems around you, from government to media to your own presence in the world. One pattern, one insight, one step at a time.
Every week follows the same path. Understand the timing, recognize the pattern, develop discernment, and then take your action. Because the declassified files are out there. The truth is available, but only if you know where to look and what the silence means. The question is, are you paying attention? Are you recognizing the patterns? Are you asking the right questions? So we'd love to have you join us. Make sure you subscribe to our gold membership. Go check out IamYouTubeFamous.com and register to be part of our newsletter. And when you're ready to recognize those patterns of to recognize patterns of your own visibility in the world, go and join us here. Again, IamYouTubeFamous.com. Become part of the visibility engine. That's episode number 17 tonight. Did you get it this week? Did you get it right?
Because next episode, more files are being declassified, more secrets are coming out. The question is, how many times will you be shocked before you stop being shocked? And if you guessed right, let us know in the comments. And a reminder to subscribe.
And good call, Mind Mystique. You got it right tonight. And on that, we will see you on Thursday night for Honestly Though. And we will be back next Monday with some new stories to share with you. Have a great night.